Mr. President.
Republican leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, here we are. Democrats have bowed to the far left and they've shut down the federal government. As of this morning, critical federal employees, including members of the military, Border Patrol agents, and air traffic controllers, are working without pay. And a number of government services are unavailable or at risk. Mr. President, Democrats are well aware of the damage of a government shutdown. We've heard it from them time and time again. But apparently, none of that matters to Democrats today. All that seems to matter is that their far-left base sees them fighting against President Trump. And the American people just have to suffer the consequences. Mr. President, we can end this today. There is a clean, nonpartisan, continuing resolution at the desk. It has no partisan policy writers, no new Republican policies. It just keeps the government running until November the 21st. The House passed it. The President is ready to sign it into law. And the only thing standing in the way is Senate Democrats, who are demanding $1.5 trillion in partisan spending to keep the government open for 7 weeks. That's right. They are demanding more than the defense budget in their resolution to keep the government open for 4 weeks. Mr. President, that's not how this works.
Before we get into today's topic, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our commentary. Your support helps us continue bringing clarity, truth, and reason to the debates that shape America's future. Now let's talk about the shutdown.
We were in the situation 13 times when Democrats had the majority under President Biden. And 13 times, Republicans provided more than enough votes to keep the government open. And that's what needs to happen here. We are just one Senate roll call vote away from ending this shutdown. We need a handful of Democrats to join Republicans to reopen the government. And once we do that, then we can talk about the issues that Democrats are raising. But we're not going to engage in bipartisan discussions while Democrats are holding the federal government hostage to their partisan demands. Mr. President, this Democrat shutdown is actually delaying progress on the issues that Democrats claim to be interested in. It's also delaying important work on appropriations bills. Now, I've said throughout this year that my goal is to do appropriations through regular order which allows members of both parties to give voice to their priorities and to help shape appropriations bills. And we've made good progress already this year. Thanks to the work of Chair Collins and the Appropriations Committee, we've passed 3 bipartisan bills before the August recess for the first time since 2018. And there are a number of additional bills ready for floor consideration. But that work is now delayed because we have to deal with the Democrat shutdown mess. Mr. President, how long this shutdown lasts depends entirely on Democrats. Republicans are united around a clean, nonpartisan funding extension. A few Democrats joined us last night and voted to keep the government open. They'll have another opportunity to vote today. And I hope more of our Democrat colleagues will agree to end this shutdown. Real people are suffering right now because of Democrats' temper tantrum. And it needs to stop. Mr. President, I want to close with this. In 2019, in the midst of another shutdown, the Democrat leader urged reopening the government before negotiating on the one point of disagreement. He said then, and I quote, "Why must we hold millions of Americans who depend on the services of these agencies that are closed, hundreds of thousands of workers who get paid by these agencies, why must we hold them hostage? Why must a temper tantrum determine how we vote and what happens in this government? Everyone can shut down the government on anything, any leader, any president. It is not the way to do things." End quote. Well, Mr. President, I hope that the Democrat leader will heed his own words. Democrats need to reopen the government, and we need to get back to work for the American people. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Right now, federal employees, including men and women in uniform, Border Patrol agents, and even air traffic controllers, are being forced to work without pay. Everyday Americans who depend on government services are left in limbo. This is not an abstract debate in Washington. It has real consequences for real people. And here is the heart of the issue. Rather than pass a clean resolution to keep the government open, Democrats are digging in their heels. They are demanding $1.5 trillion in new partisan spending for just a few weeks of government funding. Think about that. More than the defense budget, but only to keep the government open for barely a month. That is not responsible governing. That is political gamesmanship. This is not the first time we have seen a shutdown used as a political weapon. But what makes this frustrating is the hypocrisy. Not long ago, Democrat leaders themselves argued that no side should ever hold Americans hostage to a shutdown. They called it reckless, irresponsible, and damaging. Yet now, the same leaders are employing the very tactic they once condemned. This is not principled leadership, it is selective outrage based on who occupies the White House. Meanwhile, Republicans are offering what should be a straightforward solution, a clean, nonpartisan funding extension until November the 21st. No policy riders, no hidden agendas, just time to keep the lights on while both parties work out their differences through regular order. That is what governing looks like. That is what the American people expect. Here's what many in the media will not say. This shutdown does not just halt routine services. It stalls progress on appropriations bills that already had bipartisan support. For the first time in years, several spending bills passed through committee with Democrats and Republicans working together. That momentum is now being wasted because leadership on the left decided to prioritize a political standoff instead of practical solutions. We should also point out that Republicans in the past, under President Biden, consistently voted to keep the government open, 13 times, in fact. They did not always agree with how money was being spent, but they recognized that shutting down government hurts Americans first. That same sense of responsibility is what is needed from Democrats today. Now, let's be clear, this is not about opposing Democrats for the sake of opposition. This is about calling out bad strategy and misplaced priorities. Real people are suffering while Washington engages in a power struggle. Our border agents, our military families, our federal workers, they deserve better than to be pawns in a partisan chess match. At the end of the day, the American people want government to function. They want leaders who can put country before politics. Republicans are offering that path, and it only takes a handful of Democrats to put an end to the shutdown immediately. It is time to set aside the theatrics, reopen the government, and then have the debates about spending in the proper way, through regular order, in open committees, where both sides have a voice. That is the kind of responsible governance that will restore trust in Washington. It is not flashy, it is not headline-grabbing, but it is the right thing to do. And if Democrats truly believe in the words they once spoke about shutdowns being destructive, then now is the time for them to live up to those words. Thank you for watching, and if you believe we need more accountability and more common-sense solutions, do not forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Together, we can hold leaders accountable and make sure the American people always come first.